Hey, dualpreneur, it's 2023. It's time to be happy. How many of you want to be a happy dualpreneur? Well, my celebrity guest today is going to tell us what it takes to not only be successful, but to be a happy dualpreneur. Well, Alfred, thank you so much for joining us on the new Dualpreneur podcast. It's always a pleasure. I think I'm usually on the other side. You're interviewing me, but this is a great opportunity for me to interview you. I consider you my mentor. We've known each other for many, many, many years, and you've always been that cheerleader, that supporter, especially with my books, since you did the foreword for two of my books. So I so appreciate your faith and everything that you have in me especially with Dualpreneur. And I had to have you as the first guest of the Dualpreneur podcast because I consider you the number one dualpreneur. You are the ultimate dualpreneur. And if nobody knows who you are, this is Alfred Edmond. He is Alfred Edmond Jr. He is the most brilliant man I think of when it comes to for dualpreneurship. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I'm just going to start cooing over you and then everybody's going to get jealous. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and why are you so magnificent?
Well, they're going to have to be jealous because it's a great honor. I tell people a mentor is not a title you claim, it's a title you're assigned. So for you to recognize me as your mentor, given all your accomplishments as an author, as an expert in both personal finance and money advice, as well as business advice for entrepreneurs, to be known as one of your mentors is just a great privilege. Just as it's a great privilege to be the first guest of the Dualpreneur podcast. So you're making my day, you're making my week, and I'm just glad to be here. So just by way of brief introduction, we'll probably go into more detail in our conversation, but I'm best known to most people as a longtime chief editor, media executive, journalist at Black Enterprise. I'm in my 35th year at Black Enterprise. I'm currently senior vice president, executive editor at large. I ran the magazine as editor-in-chief for 13 years. I was the first editor-in-chief of blackenterprise.com for a little under 2.5 years. Kind of helped the company transition into becoming what it is today, a digital media and a live and virtual events company. Yes, we are still called Black Enterprise Magazine, but we do not publish a monthly magazine. We haven't done that in a number of years. So today I am a lead content creator and a senior vice president for Black Enterprise. I host a series for Black Enterprise called Beyond the Hype, and another series called Your Money, Your Life, which, of course, Tara, you've been a guest on that show a couple of times since it started over 2 years ago. In addition, I host the show outside of Black Enterprise called Be Lifted Up Radio. It's a faith and finance-based show that I co-host with DC Marshall, the one and only DC Marshall, on the Mocha Podcast Network. I've been doing that for about 2 years. I am an author myself. I co-wrote a book with Zara Green called Loving in the Grown Zone. At the time, I was really pushing this agenda of relationships and how pursuing healthy relationships is key to being successful in business and life and financially and otherwise. And I do a variety of other things. I'm a big time mentor, informally, I'm one-on-one with a lot of entrepreneurs and professionals over the years because I just really believe in mentoring. But I just finished my first stint as a mentor in the Black Ambition program, where I mentored, that's Pharrell's program supporting Black founders. And I mentored 6 entrepreneurs through that program over the past year. I'm a public speaker. I'm a professional moderator, professional stage interviewer, natural bodybuilder. That's my sport of choice as an amateur athlete outside of my daily work. I serve on a number of advisory boards, including the Inclusion Insiders Advisory Board for Pinterest, and all kinds of other things that I do, which speaks to my being honored to be considered a great example of dualpreneurship, since that was not something I set out to do when I went on this journey. I didn't have a name for it until you let me know what that was, and so I was obviously proud to be to write the foreword for the Dualpreneur Bible, your most recent book, as well as the Four Financial Languages, your previous book.
Well, that's awesome, and you do so much. Now, you had an amazing job at, Black Enterprise. You still have an amazing job at Black Enterprise. What made you want to, do other things outside of, outside of Black Enterprise?
Well, it was a confluence of probably two or three major things that I started to recognize when I had been at Black Enterprise, maybe 20, 24, 25 years. I was in my mid 40s. I read a book that I highly recommend, and I've had the author on my show, Beyond the Hype, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, called The Wealth Choice. One of the things that came out of that book, and it was his book interviewing Black millionaires and billionaires, and trying to kind of suss out the commonalities of their success and their way of thinking and looking at life. But one of the things was the importance of breaking the algorithm between time and money. Meaning we come up, especially early in our careers, and at first we're paid for how many hours we put in. Then we may become salaried, but that's still kind of time-based. You're expected to spend at least 40 hours a week. When you become salaried, the expectation in America is now you're going to spend 50, maybe 60 hours a week working to earn your salary, because the higher your salary goes, the more responsibility you have, the more likely you're going to be working with people or being responsible for other people. But to really create wealth, you had to getting away from how much time you spent doing something, getting paid for that, to getting paid for things that are not time-based. So that was one of the things that came out of my understanding of that book, that I began to realize that getting paid for what you know, getting paid to solve problems, and you can solve a problem in 15 minutes. The value of solving that problem doesn't diminish because you spent, 3 hours or 3 days or 3 years doing it. If you could solve it in 15 minutes, and you might have seen the meme on social media that says, no, I spent 30 years getting the expertise to be able to solve that problem in 15 years. You're paying for my 30 years of expertise. You're not paying for the time it takes to solve that problem. So that was the first thing. The second thing was a recognition that I'm a senior executive of Black Enterprise. I've been a senior vice president since the mid 90s in all my various roles. Black Enterprise compensates me very, very well, even for a relatively small Black media company. We were always very competitive salary-wise, great benefits packages, 401k, healthcare. We have the kind of coverage for our business, our side, that you would expect of a Fortune 500 company, because our founder, Earl Graves Sr., our late founder, he was looking at examples like IBM in the 80s and the 90s when he was talking about what he wanted us to have. So I say all that to say, very well compensated. At that time, I was still, I think I was editor-in-chief of blackenterprise.com, the highest ranking non-family member in the company at the time, except for the CFO. CFO was ahead of me. But my point was, I was making as much money as I could probably make in my industry at the company that I wanted to work for. And this was maybe 2006, 2007, when I realized that even if nothing went wrong, my income from the company was going to level off. Like I could get, and we know that something always goes wrong. And of course, we had the Great Recession a couple of years after that, and the transition of media from print to digital, which a lot of traditional media companies didn't make it through. Thank God Black Enterprise did. So, but even if none of that happened, I was looking at, could I live off of this income that I'm making now for the rest of my life? Assuming I never get fired, assuming I'm not forced to retire, and assuming nothing goes wrong, and then you got inflation, well, the math starts to become simple. It's like, you got to find ways to continue to generate income even when these other things happen. If you want to live the life that you want to live, and of course, I'm into health and fitness, because my plan is to live to past 100. But, they don't stop charging you for mortgage and food and gas and electric. So I was like, I got to figure out a way. How am I going to maintain this? And so that led me to start thinking about, okay, there's a salary cap in my company, in my industry. It's not just in sports, it's in every industry. Sooner or later, there's going to be an incentive to bring in someone younger and cheaper to do my job, no matter how good I am. Just look at pro sports, happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last part of it was what kind of lifestyle that I want. And the truth was, I was commuting back and forth to the job. I had already brought into this idea that I don't have to be at a physical office every day to get my job done. And that led to me thinking, and ultimately going to my CEO, Butch Graves, and saying, listen, I really want to, step out of a day-to-day operational role, stay in a more strategic role, and not have to come in every day. And I'm willing to give back, some salary to get 2 or 3 days of my life back to do other things. And part of it was the other things to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
That was I could make more money than I was giving back to the company to have this flexibility, which I proved that in the first quarter of this, by the way, in 2015. Mm-hmm. But the other thing was I'm good and interested in a whole bunch of things. I'm just good at stuff. I have lots of interest. And when you're running, in this case, the content team of a media company like Black Enterprise, there's no room to do much else. Mm-hmm. I was turning down all kinds of opportunities. I was responsible for 25 people on my staff, 3 different budgets. It was getting to work at 8:30 in the morning and leaving at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. So some of it was a lifestyle change. And I wanted the flexibility of like the flexibility I have now. Like I don't take calls before 11 o'clock. I don't, I might wake up before 11 o'clock, but I don't do things before 11 o'clock. I'm an 11 to 7 type of guy, not a 9 to 5 guy. Mm-hmm. So in order to have that flexibility to craft the life that I wanted, what we now know as dualpreneurship became the answer. I love Black Enterprise. My career is at Black Enterprise. I didn't want to leave Black Enterprise. I was willing to, if that's what it took to do these other things, but fortunately I didn't have to. Mm-hmm. And beginning in 2015, I was required to go into the office at least 2 days a week. And then on the as needed basis, if the CEO needed me for other things. And of course, to go to all of our events, because I still, moderate sessions at our events. I lead the Black Men Excel Summit. So I still do most of the stuff that I was doing before I made this arrangement. But now I had time to accept opportunities like hosting Be Lifted Up Radio, because we don't have a radio property, so that didn't compete with anything with Black Enterprise. So I could do more public speaking, because I was turning down paid engagements all the time because I just didn't have time or conflicted with my work at Black Enterprise. All these advisory boards that I get paid to sit on now, I couldn't do that when I was at Black Enterprise. I didn't have time. I didn't have the bandwidth. And so that's where I got to be where I am now, where I've done everything from for about 2 years. I was a partner at a bow tie line, Windsor Neckwear. I cut a deal. We did a signature bow tie line, the Alfred Edmond Jr. collection that you can still get. It's hard to get, but it's somewhere. We did that for a couple of years because I'm looking at style and fashion. Those things, the desire for a flexible lifestyle, no limit on my earning power, because with this extra, I'm finding ways. It doesn't take me, 40 hours a week to do a lot of those things that I do that I get paid to do now. Mm-hmm. I'm much more well rested. I get sleep, as much sleep as I want, but I still have the stability of my career at Black Enterprise and continuing that career and playing a key role. Because frankly, I was surprised and thankful that I was willing to give up my senior vice president role, because that means I'm one of the 12 people that help run the company. But our CEO was like, no, we need that. That's the part that I don't want to give up. And so still a very high ranking member of the company, very considered a critical contributor, but still have the flexibility to do these other things. And by the way, and I'm sure you'll hit on this because we do it in the book, it doesn't hurt my other activities outside of Black Enterprise that I'm still associated with Black Enterprise. My track record, my legacy, my skill sets, my networks, my relationships, that Black Enterprise being part of my brand helps me with the other stuff that I do. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, the other stuff that I do also helps me be more effective for Black Enterprise. So, like I said, I didn't call it dualpreneurship when I started this out, but when you started Dualpreneur and on social media, and you told me you were doing this book, and I was all for it, because you gave a name to something that I didn't have a name for. I just knew what I wanted to do and how I wanted to live.
And that's what I really talk about in Dualpreneur Bible, is leveraging your employer's benefits to help start and grow your business, as long as it's not a conflict of interest. It didn't hurt that I ran a financial institution. I was the interim president CEO of a credit union in Atlanta, Georgia, and being Madam Money. It kind of gives me a little bit of credibility there. You know what I mean? So that's amazing. What's some of the challenges that you face being a dualpreneur now?
Well, for me, there's a couple things. I've been working since the summer of my 13th, the summer after I turned 13. I come from a family of kind of working class, blue collar, mostly military, nurses. One of my cousins, paints car. I mean, it's a very blue collar, which is a good thing because it means I'm really good at. I like working. I'm good at working. But for the first couple of years, literally after I adopted this dualpreneur lifestyle, I almost felt guilty for having control of my own time. Like I almost felt guilty that I didn't have to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I almost felt like I was being, it took a while for me to adjust to the freedom. I mean, freedom sounds great until you get it. And then you realize, oh my God. And again, I came from a background where it felt like if I didn't wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning to get to the office by 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, somehow I was cheating again, I'm a people pleaser. So I have a lot of issues rooted in that I had to overcome when I adopted this dualpreneur to say, no, now you can design the life that you want. Now, the flip side of that is I had to design the life that I want. There wasn't going to be a boss asking where that report is. There wasn't going to be somebody leaning over my shoulder. Did you make it? Did you do this? You do that. Now you got to manage yourself. And I used to always say, it's funny, at the beginning of my career, I used to say it, but I meant it more euphemistically, but now it's true. Black enterprise is my biggest client. So I can't get so caught up in the freedom and I'm flying around the country and speaking and competing in shows as a bodybuilder and, having all my freedom. And then I don't do what I'm supposed to do for Black enterprise, even if the expectation is not that I show up into the office every day, that I need to be on point. I'm considered one of the top performers in the company. That cannot change. I don't believe it has over the last, say, 7 years since I've been living this life. And so in the beginning, being responsible to say, okay, I'm really crazy about maintaining my calendar. Like my biggest fear is I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Or not showing up.
Or I screw up the time zones because I go back and forth from New York to Chicago now. Since the pandemic, I've been like working. I did work from Brazil one time, and it's like, no, my calendar has to be tight because depending on where I am and what I'm doing, I need to be somewhere with accessible Wi-Fi with a strong signal. I need to be able to have the right lighting because I do 3 different shows that I record at any given week. And so being in the right place at the right time in the right circumstances to do what I'm supposed to do for my biggest client, Black enterprise, who is my employer, not just a client. I mean, that's my benefits and everything still comes from there, but also for Pinterest when we have an Inclusion Insiders meeting, for Black Ambition when we have our mentee sessions. There's a bunch of things in addition to my own self and my commitment to myself. My commitment to my faith, my first fruits to church, and my first fruits in prayer in the morning, and I get to read my Bible more deliberately, and because I got the time, but it's still on me to set priorities and make these things happen. And so I'm not just talking about work and business. I'm talking about family. I mean, I have a grandson now, and so these are things that I won't say I neglected when I was working 60, 70 hours a week. But some others might say that. My kids might say that. And so there's also a stage of life when you really want to be deliberate. So I think the freedom was scary in the beginning, but also realizing that we all talk about being our own boss, but some people can't cut dualpreneurship or entrepreneurship because they can't manage themselves.
I think that's really true because a lot of people that want to start a business aren't entrepreneurs. They're not ready to be entrepreneurs. They're not ready for business ownership. Just because you want to start a business doesn't mean that you're ready for business ownership. And you can tell that by the way you handle your job. And I love what you said, that Black enterprise is your biggest and your number one client. And until you can think that way, that your job is not your job is your number one biggest client that you still need to serve and make sure they're satisfied, then you're probably in a position where you can have other clients. But if you still think of your job as being your job, you're still probably in that employee mindset, which is contradictory to entrepreneurship.
And poor employees make horrible entrepreneurs.
Oh my God.
Poor employees make horrible dualpreneurs.
Say it again. Say it again. Say it
Really
again.
do, because if you're running away from your job to start a business, the things that make you successful at work are going to be required of you in triplicate
Mhm.
as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And I tell you, there's nothing worse than hating your boss when your boss is you.
Come on.
There's nothing worse. You may hate your boss at your job, but when your boss is you and you're not making payroll and you're not paying your own bills because you're not really committed, see, part of the thing that helped me with this transition is that I've always approached my career as an entrepreneur. I've always, like I said, it was euphemistically early in my career, but I always said, no, this is my number one client. I work for myself. I've always felt that way. I work for myself, and whoever my employer is at that time is my number one client. I felt that way before Black Enterprise. I worked at my first newspaper job in Brooklyn. I was editor-in-chief of a small Black newspaper called Big Red News in Brooklyn for nearly 2 years. In my 20s, I was 25, 26 years old. And then I went to a magazine called Modern Black Men when I was the number 2 editor at age 26 before I came to Black Enterprise. But my mindset was always, my employer is a client, my number one client. And my job is to keep that client happy so they give me what I want and I get the leverage to do things that I want to do. And even back in those days, I got paid to do public speaking and do some other things on a very small scale and early in my career. So I was used to doing that. But having that client mindset with your employer, if you can't have that mindset, that's not your sign to start a business. That's your sign to change employers. Get a different job, a better job, maybe even a different career where you can be fully professionally committed and engaged in a way that you'll excel in that job, you'll excel in that career, because those are the qualities that you're going to need when you're working for yourself and for other clients and working for yourself.
Absolutely. And, what we talk about in the Dualpreneur Bible as well is that, a lot of people don't want to cross train or understand different departments or understand how those partner. They just want to do their job, right? That does not make you an entrepreneur or a dualpreneur, a good dualpreneur. Because when you become an entrepreneur, you either are those other departments or you're going to have to find a way to execute what's necessary. So human resources doesn't go away. The finance department doesn't go away. Marketing, research, sales, development, all of that, all those departments don't go away. As an entrepreneur, you either are those departments or you have to delegate them. We talk about the do it, delegate it, or delete it, the dual per way. You're going to have to figure out how you're going to do those. And I talk a lot about people. They just think that they're good at this one job. Well, the reason why you're good at this one job is because there's other departments doing what they need to do so you can focus. And so I think it's so important about understanding the different aspects of your job so that you can understand how you're going to manage those departments in your own business.
Well, and I love that. And I always tell people one of the biggest assets you can cultivate or characteristics you can cultivate in yourself is a genuine interest, a genuine curiosity about things that on the surface you would not be interested in. Curiosity, just wanting to know. Maybe you'll never want to be an accountant, but you want to understand what the accounting department does. Maybe you'll never want to work with HR. You don't consider yourself a people person, but you want to understand what HR is and what it does and why it's important to an organization. And I was blessed at birth, and my late mother used to say to me, I'm allergic to boredom. I have a natural curiosity about a lot of different things. That's why I know a lot of different things. I can do a lot of different things. And the things that I can't do, I can learn pretty quickly. Because since I was a child, I was just I just like knowing about stuff. Even if I knew that in the long run, this is not something I really wanted to do, I just wanted to know. And when I became a professional, and certainly, I talk about my time at Black Enterprise, as I rose through the ranks, and I got promoted pretty early in my time at Black Enterprise. I got promoted to business editor 6 months after I got there, then senior editor, then managing editor, and ultimately executive editor and editor in chief. There was no way to make that advancement if I didn't understand the budget. The budget, not only my own budget, but the budgets of the other departments. And I didn't understand HR. I had to understand HR because as I was hiring staff and firing staff in some cases, I had to understand the rules and the laws of HR and how they had to be done in a way that was healthy for the company and fair to the employee. So I really learned to run a business because I worked at Black Enterprise, and in part because Black Enterprise is about, I had access to the best entrepreneurial experts and personal finance experts like you in every industry, which is why I'm such a good mentor. I don't know everything about everything, but I know something about everything. And if I don't know, I know somebody who knows.
Exactly.
But to your point, that you can't just say, I do this. I put this cog in this hole. That's what I do. I put this peg in this box, and that's what I do. You really do have to understand business in general. And if you understand business in general, you tend to understand all businesses. That's going to be key to you building your own business, even if you're not totally interested in accounting or whatever. You may only care about baking cakes. You may only care about designing clothes. But guess what? You're not going to be successful at those things if you don't understand the rest of that. And that's why your company can really be a free MBA program. Think about it.
Absolutely. Okay, so before we wrap up, we need some advice for those people that are considering being a dualpreneur, starting their own side business. They are dualpreneurs and they're just trying to make it happen. Or some people that are very successful with their side businesses and they just want to increase. What's some advice that you have being a successful dualpreneur and a happy dualpreneur at that? What's some advice that you can give us?
I'll tell you what's worked for me and kind of my rules of engagement for myself, not for everybody else, but for me to manage myself. One is, if you're not a star at your job, your number one client, if you're not a star, make up your mind you're going to be one. And again, if you can't be a star in the company you're employed by now, it may be time to change companies or change careers. But you want to be a star, not a star because you say so. You want to be a star. Your performance evaluations say so. Your peers, your superiors, if you got people reporting to you, you want to be known as one of the stars, what we call at Black Enterprise, the real deal. When somebody at Black Enterprise says that person's the real deal, we know they're one of the stars of the company, where they're the administrative assistant or they're the CEO. You want to be known for that in your company, because again, that translates your brand to your other things that you might do outside of the company. The second thing is self-care is critical. I got to say this, self-care is critical. You're not going to be able to hit on all cylinders and juggle all these different priorities and make your clients happy and make more money if you're tired, if you're not fed well, if your nutrition is poor, if your relationships are toxic and full of conflict and unhealthy. All that stuff drains your energy. And so if you follow me on social media, you'll see there's a certain way that I live that focuses on my faith, that focuses on my fitness, that focuses on my mental health. I just think you're not really going to make the kind of money you're going to make if you don't take care of that. The third thing is relationships. Tara, you hit the nail on the head. Whether it's relationships with people inside your company or outside your company, it takes a village, it takes an army to do all the things that you want to do. And your ability to cultivate relationships not only helps you generate more revenue, it also helps you to manage all the different clients, all the different activities that you want to manage to do what you want to do. And it helps you identify opportunities. And speaking as a public speaker, most of my public speaking engagements, yes, I have a speaker rep. Yes, they generate engagements for me. But a lot of it comes from the relationships of people who experienced me and said, oh, Alfred would be great to speak at your event. Alfred would be great to moderate that conversation at your conference. Alfred would be great. So the beauty of dualpreneurship is that you got a lot of freedom. The challenge of it, you got to really be good at maximizing and managing your time, your energy, your health, and your relationships. And if you do those things, you'll have a probably 90% chance of success. And as you said, Tara, not just being successful, being happy. It's not just about, I didn't do this just so I could be more successful. I was already a successful person and professional. It was about, how can I be happy living the life that I want to live? and have the flexibility that I wanted. If you don't do anything else, though, get the book. I'm gonna do it for you, so you don't have to. The Dualpreneur Bible. There's a reason why I was willing to write the forward to that book. I get asked to do that kind of thing all the time. There's only about 5 books I've ever done it for because I just don't. I don't do it for
5? You've done 2 of mine.
you're right. 2 out of 2 of yours. Jay Barnett, I did look forward to one of his books. Hello King, Claim Your Throne. My late mentor Wayne Sobers, I can't call the name of his book out. I wrote the forward to his book, and Alex O. Ellis, I wrote the forward to his book, Reinventing the Male Image. Those are the 5 books I've written forwards to, and I can count them because it's not something. So I forget all those other books. Remember the Dualpreneur Bible. If you're serious about it's exploring dualpreneurship, that's a book that you must read. If you don't remember anything else I recommended, you definitely need to check that book out.
Well, I appreciate you as always. And I always appreciate you thinking of me when it comes time to do your podcast and your interviews and everything. You always include me. I still remember our time in New York where I got stuck in the snowstorm. But I was so excited to be there. But thank you so much again for being our first guest on the Dualpreneur. We should have called it the Happy DUALpreneur podcast because that's what we're striving to be is happy. So thank you so much. How can people follow you, connect with you, book you to speak and be at your events? And yes, Alfred has spoken at several of my events, and I thank you so much for that as well.
Well, you can find me across all social media platforms, even TikTok, though even though I don't use it. Alfred Edmond Jr. ALFRED Don't follow your dreams, follow my Instagram, but you can follow me across all those platforms. And through those platforms, I can provide information on how to book me for public speaking engagements, connecting to my speaker rep over at Shark Speakers. I'm represented by Damon John's Shark Speakers. And yeah, anything else you want to know. Everybody knows if you can't get to me anywhere else, DM me on Instagram and I will respond right away. Because I am, as my daughter calls me, one of my daughters calls me a social media OG. So
or you can just Google them, boo. Just
yeah,
just
you can do that too.
Google them.
No doubt.
I always tell everybody,
and
just
there's
Google
a reason why, Tara, that we roll together like we do. I've been on your show, speaking at your events, and vice versa. You are the real deal. I told you that from one. I told you from Financial Fornication. I was like, you are the real deal. So it's very easy. And like I said, it's an honor to be claimed as one of your mentors.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the first show. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Make sure you go and follow, book, connect with Alfred Edmond Jr. He is the real deal, too. And if you can't find him anywhere else, you can go to blackenterprise.com and you can definitely find them there. You can even search my name in Black Enterprise and see what y'all may find.
No doubt.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for watching.